Welcome to the Worldbuilder's Anvil, episode 207, the greatest moments of the first 200 plus episodes.
Most of which take place after episode 79.
Minus 79 if your name is Michael. Don't know where to start building your fantasy world?
Do you need more? Does it make sense?
Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination.
This is the place where we will prime your mind.
Now, it's time to heat up the forge.
Break out the mithril ingots and hammer.
Welcome to the Worldbuilder's Anvil. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Michael Miller.
Let's sup from the muck of Java and build. Welcome back, as always. My name is Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And nostalgically yours, I am Michael Miller.
And actually, I'm doing bad math there. It's actually minus 78, not minus 79, because I think Michael would include 79. So
you have an episode 0.
But I don't consider that episode because that's 0.
Well, right, but it still counts as a number. So it'd still be 79.
0 is actually not counted as a number. It's not a number.
Allow me to rephrase. It's still counted as an episode, which means there's 79 before I came on.
So if we subtracted by 79, your first episode would become 0?
If we subtracted 79 episodes, we'd land on episode 79, which is when the show dramatically improved by my presence.
Ah. Okay. Oof.
I had an opportunity to make the humility joke today.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. Somebody was in somebody's Facebook thread, and they were talking about how something they like in a man is confidence and humility. Or someone said intelligence and confidence, and then the other person was like, I like intelligence and humility. And I said, boy, I am the best at humility. I'm like, I'm probably the best guy at humility that I know.
Did it kill off the thread?
No, it didn't, because it's a good friend of mine, and my good friend's wife, and she then responded. She was like, yeah, ironic too, and I was like, well, that comes with the sense of humor. I'm quite a catch.
Hard to get with someone so humble.
Yeah, you luck out when you got this much in one person. So.
Well, and Michael is lovingly taking us right into the content, because that actually refers back to I made that joke. I don't know. We have no idea what episode that was. We apologize for that.
And we've made it a bunch of times. It's just it's a fun joke.
It's a fun joke. And so if you're listening right now and you know what it is, make sure to let us know what episode that was. So,
and the funny thing is,
one of those episodes.
Like, I've used that joke before we ever did it in the show, but I say it differently. What I always say is, if it wasn't for my lack of humility, I'd be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my delivery on it. And then you got into, I'm the most humble person I know. I'm the best at it. or something like that. Yeah, which cracked me up. So today's episode, we're actually being incredibly self-serving, and we're talking about, I know, shocker, right? And we're talking about what have been some of our favorite episodes and our favorite moments of making the show.
Yeah, most definitely. And this is really, I think it's a good way to wrap up the year and go into the new year. So we did not do this any of the other years. I don't think there's never been a recap episode before, but it was just something that I was kind of in the mood to do, and being very reflectful on life, where hopefully at the point of this airing, I will have a child.
Hooray!
Or not quite yet. So maybe not hooray. So we'll find out when the episode goes live.
So when the episode goes live, hit up Jeff in the forums. If he hasn't already announced in the forums that he is a legit father.
I already have my planned announcement method, which I will not share here just in case.
Interesting.
Yes. Yes. But of course, it involves memeing, so that's what's really important in life.
Oh, you're not gonna meme, Eric.
I'm gonna meme my baby right out of the.
Oh.
I tried to talk my wife into Facebook living the birthing process.
Oh my god!
And she was not into that for some reason.
Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah.
This poor kid.
So going into that, do you want to go first or do I want to go first? I don't care.
Well, you go first, because I think it's important that we as an an Anvil community, and I say this as a listener, not as the co-host, acknowledge you as, creating the brainchild and being the brain trust of this endeavor, because this has been fantastic. It has given me so much. I know we have given our community so much, and this all came from you. So your first pick is, it's important.
Yeah. And so it's obviously not the episode you started on.
Of course not.
It's before that, obviously.
Obviously.
But it would actually be episode 27, and it would be the interview with Don Metcalf.
Oh, see, the way I was introing that, I thought you were starting with the other one.
Nope.
Oh, okay. Well, then, everything I just said, remember that for when Jeff gets to his third pick.
Don't ruin it. No foreshadowing.
Yeah, sorry. I did such a good intro for that pick, too, and I didn't realize you were going with Don's interview first.
Yeah, and the reason I'm going with this one first is, one, I think Michael wishes that he was on when this happened, because Don is an incredible personality. But there's one line specifically that will sit with me to the end of my days from within that episode, and that is when she talks about, you could create something like mutant lemmings. And I've been obsessed with mutant lemmings ever since, because I want mutant lemmings because of that one line, that one throwaway line from her in this interview. Great personality, good friend of both of ours in real life, a published author. I think it's 5 books now.
Dude, keep up. I think it's more than that.
I don't know.
She's got one,
Not
2,
enough. Not
3.
enough.
Yeah, definitely not enough.
Not enough.
Certainly 5. You're definitely right about 5, but for some reason, I want to say it's more than 5. But at least 5.
Yeah, at least 5. And just a very clever person. My first interview as well, too. Obviously, I went for someone easier because someone I actually knew up front. But she helped me flesh out the format and come up with, I think, a very good introduction type of interview that I could share people with the show. And I only do it occasionally, but I do like doing them. So I do like the episode type, and it was sort of my first time, and that Mutant Lemmings line will be buried in my brain forever.
And anyone that is an avid listener of this show, is probably aware of the name Dawn Metcalf, because we blow her up on this show. She's absolutely fantastic. And just on a personal level, there was a point in time where Dawn and I used to talk on the phone literally every single day. And her husband, John, got me through a very difficult time in my life, and I can't thank them enough. They're just incredibly generous, wonderful, silly, creative, powerful people. They're just amazing people. Like, if you ever get your opportunity, like she does book signings and she does library visits and talks, and she's just an incredible person to know. So if you get the opportunity to spend some time with her, do that. If you don't get that opportunity, go buy her books. Buy her books. And I've said it before, and I'll probably say it again. There's a character in her first novel that, and I always try to say it kind of cryptically so I don't give anything away, that is one of the greatest characters I have ever read. I'm pretty sure I have said it's the greatest villain. I'm pretty sure I've said that before. It's the greatest villain I have ever read. It is the greatest villain I have ever read. So if only for that, read that book. Buy that book. Buy her other books. So, episode 27.
All right. So what would be your third top episode?
So third top, because we're going in reverse order, and I messed it up because of I have the show notes in the other order. It's a recent episode, so I feel kind of funny talking about it. But actually, episode 202, the Pirates in Space episode. And Jeff's like, when we were talking about this before we started the show, he's like, really? Really? You're going to go with the Pirates episode? And I'm like, Jeff, I've done over 130 episodes at this point, or over 120 episodes at this point, and it's the only one where I speak accented in a different character the entire episode.
And I have to say, Michael enjoyed this so much, he sacrificed his voice for 3 weeks. We couldn't record after that episode.
No. It wasn't that bad. But I was sore. I did have a sore throat by the end of the episode.
And I see it as payment for his work on the first however many he's done now, which has been quite a few. It's definitely more than I did on my own. Now have we done together, which is really cool. But
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
There's more episodes with me than without me now.
Yeah, most definitely. So, and so this episode was sort of his payment. It was an interesting topic, which you probably didn't get as much of Michael's usual like awesome feedback because he was struggling to fit in pirate lines and use pirate accent. But
yeah, that's true. But there was I remember a couple of things that like I wanted to talk about, but I was like, I can't do it in this accent or in this character. I have to let it go.
So, but really, I think from a personal level, I think we both had a blast on the episode, and I haven't got any hate mail from it. So,
and I'm surprised there wasn't more backlash from that episode. Not backlash, but reaction.
Yeah.
And we laughed before the episode. We were laughing, and after the episode. Because then Jeff's like, oh, I'm surprised you didn't say this, and I'm surprised you didn't say that. I'm like, I meant to say that. I totally forgot about that line. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, he didn't shiver me timbers us.
I did re-listen to the episode, and we dropped Shiver Me Timbers at the very end, but I never dropped Walk the Plank.
Oh, jeez.
What a big miss.
What a pirate miss on that one.
I can get it now. You walk the plank.
Our spaced out pirate Michael Miller. Which actually leads in well to my second favorite moment on the show, which was episode 79. And it was not just because of the brilliant content I came up with to talk about on that episode, which was a great episode topic, and we'll get a little bit into that as well too. But really, it was episode 79. It was Michael's first appearance as the co-host on the show. And we covered ant zombie overlords, which was sort of a critter I came up with years ago. And I had a lot of fun playing with because it's topically, it's big. Yeah.
Tapped from a similar vein as mutant lemmings.
Exactly, because it's a twist on something that It's sort of a couple phobias squeezed together, which built into people, we generally don't like dealing with dead things. So zombies and undead critters have that sort of natural ickiness of being dead, especially zombies, because you have like maggots crawling out of the skin and all kinds of lovely decay smells, where with skeletons they're past that. So zombies are a little bit more disgusting than skeletons. But definitely. People don't like bugs. And they don't like really small things. And I find it ironic, usually in fantasy, our monsters are huge.
Yeah.
They're the size of a city block or larger, your dragons, and those are the things that people are afraid of.
Well, but there's also a common theme of making the giant-sized version of your small insects, your giant spider from Lord of the Rings, your giant scorpion
every
from
MMO,
Fallouts,
every MMO,
giant roaches.
And think about every MMO that you play, the first monsters you fight are like your giant
rats.
Yeah, rats.
Giant rat, yeah.
And so with the ant zombie overlords, they are the size of very small ants. So they're kind of hard to see, but they're these things that can do tremendous damage because if they get into your brain, they can take over people and use them as zombies. And then it gets to this another question too. When you kill the zombie, it's because the ant's in there. If you could get the ant out, would it fix the person? Probably, but how do you do that?
Yeah, but didn't you make it so that they kind of ate up some of the gray matter? So wouldn't the person be kind of messed up even if you got rid of the ants?
Well, that would have been the surprise if someone actually figured out how to get the ants out, which was not easy anyway, because it's a tiny, I think they're like 20 millimeter size ants. So they're not as small as ants come, but they are on the small side for ants. They're not like army ants.
It's probably smaller than that. Millimeters are visible, so 20 millimeters would be like an inch.
No, because you figure, well, it's less than a centimeter. It's less than a centimeter, and it's 10 millimeters make a centimeter. So that'd only be 2 centimeters big, which is still smaller than an inch, I think.
It's still you're talking like that.
No, they're not.
As opposed to like I use math and measurements all the time at work, Jeff.
Listen, I'm not going to trust an electrician when it comes to measurements.
All right.
Not with a metric system. Jewel this, buddy.
Admittedly, I don't use the metric system all the time. I do sometimes. For some things, I have to.
Mm-hmm.
So my second pick is actually I'm cheating a little because I picked a series which started at episode 86, which was our Apocalypse series, and when we dofted the term apocalypse for pluralizing the word apocalypse.
Because that is obviously the way you want to do it. And we had a blast with this episode.
Well,
I think that's one of the episodes too. Formulaic-wise, it really started becoming our show in that series, I think, because it really brought a lot of you into it. And for the first few, it was very much you just sort of nodding your head and being more of a Ed McMahon style co-host. And this is for me, I think it's a good pick for these because it's kind of where your energy and intelligence and creativity really started to bleed over into the show a lot more.
The stepping back to the Ant Zombie Overlords real quick, there's one thing I wanted to acknowledge in there. The very first thing that we say at the beginning of that episode is still an ongoing joke, more than 100 episodes later.
What was that? I don't remember.
Really? You want me to just put it out there?
You put it out there because I have no idea what you're talking about.
You said I'm here with Mike Miller, and I was like,
oh.
And I said Michael, and you said what? I said Michael. You said Michael.
Now, in my defense, I called you Mike for years, and this is this is behind, inside, behind the scenes for people who are listening here. And so, was it when you were in New York you started going by Michael? Or
yeah. Basically, I grew up a little bit when I lived in New York, and Jeff and I were friends in college. And when I moved to New York, I was away for 4 years. So when I came back, and in Jeff's defense, there are still a great many people that call me Mike, including members of my family and close friends, but they're close friends that knew me when I was a teenager and up until now. So I don't balk at anybody calling me Mike from then.
You do gently correct people.
Yeah, but when I meat new people, I say, I introduce myself as Michael, and they go, oh, Mike. And I'm like, no, Michael. And usually I do it a little, I put just a tinge of just a little bit of sternness in it so they understand that Mike is not correct.
Yeah, but it is gentle, I would say, the way you correct people, but yes.
But when you say it, it's like it's not a big thing, but I just thought it would be funny to make a thing out of it, and we still do. So
yeah. Even to the creation of the invisible friend or villain character Mike on the show. Yeah.
Right. Villain Mike.
Villain Mike.
So yes, but stepping forward, the Apocalypse series, which was, oh my God, is the Apocalypse series what started the Waterworld bit?
I think that might have been what started the Waterworld bit because I believe that came up in there. Yep.
It may have been. So yeah, the show that keeps on giving. The Apocalypse series was a lot of fun. We got a lot of great feedback from it. A lot of people really enjoyed all the different types of apocalypse that we covered.
We had a blast in that one. It still does pretty well, just the social media wise when it goes out or whatever. So it's definitely 86, 87, 88 are the episodes. And we just kind of go over different types of apocalypses that we ran across, and we talked about sort of what we thought of them. It was a real blast episodes. And we also talked about, we then turned it around. It was like, okay, now go blow up your world. And we talked about,
destroying the world that you've spent so much time building.
Which is the ultimate real world or world builder's task there. And then we also did an episode later on, which is slightly related, which was how to save your world from an apocalypse. And it was sort of telling the story of that moment of the apocalypse and either letting it happen or stop preventing it, story-wise.
Before Jeff gets to his first pick, remember all that cool stuff that I said acknowledging him just a few minutes ago.
All right. My number one is just episode 0. This is the thing that really kind of started focusing me on being creative again. For years, like many men do, I completely gave up on this idea of ever having a chance to be creative again. My life was work. I had no time for anything fun. I would go home, I'd play video games. And I would work and I'd spend time with my wife, and that was it. Well, I mean, we'd go out and do other things, but creativity was pretty much gone from my life. And I found the podcasting, and I did research on how to make the audio not total crap. And I apologize for people with really good ears, because I probably don't have the best audio out there, but I have a pretty good audio. I have to give a lot of credit to John Lee Dumas, where I took a course from him which explained how to do this kind of stuff, and just because I wanted, to make it a decent production quality. And
I'd like to think that I help with that too, because there's been tons of times where I've said, no, we have to redo that.
Sure, whatever. Yeah, but no, you do. You have a very discerning ear, and I'm more worried about getting stuff done, and sometimes I need to be held back a bit. But episode 0 was really where, not only did I release something to the public too. It wasn't just getting back into creativity. It was getting back into creativity and sharing it, and that is a scary step. And we know lots of people. We met them in, a lot are in the Undercroft, where they're sort of hovering where I was right before the show started. It's like they have this thing that they need to share, and they have trouble doing it. And part of it is just the act of sharing, because there's the question of what happens when people don't like it, or maybe what happens if they do like it. Where do I go once I start sharing? And so, but for me, it was growing up wise, it was a huge moment, and it sort of helped set me down the path today to where full time I work on internet stuff from my home. I never wear pants ever. Michael knows, he's come over and screamed 5 times.
Yeah, and thankfully that when Jeff and I record the show,
he insists
we watch each other on a webcam. So I'm looking at Jeff, and thankfully the camera is from like the chest up. Always.
Well, that was after the cease and desist order that you had sent to my house.
Well, look, my lawyer is a smart guy, and I really was tired of looking at the waist down. You would just turn the camera so that all I could see was your lap, and I'm like, Jeff, how is this adding to my, like, you're assaulting my vision while I'm trying to, come up with clever things to say, and you're not helping me by showing me all this Cthulhu monster. This Cthulhu monster that you call genitalia.
Excellent.
You don't want to. It's Lovecraftian. I'm serious. You do not want to see what's going on down there. I don't know how. Like, he visits his physician. I really don't. It's terrifying.
I've had 5 quit in the last week.
It is absolutely terrifying. The leash is a good touch, though. I gotta say, there's a harness. There's a harness on it. I don't know how we got here. I'm sorry. This might be getting on the list. Episode 0.
So episode 0, having the courage to share ourselves on the internet.
Yeah. So like I said before, I have to acknowledge Jeff, because this whole thing has been such an extraordinary amount of work and effort, but it's all been fun. We have some of the things that I want to say right now, we're actually saving for a segment in a couple of minutes, so I'm going to kind of hold back. I think I just really want to acknowledge you for creating this, for, having the foresight to be like, you know what, no matter what happens, I want to do this. I want to put out a thing about world building. Because if you had turned to me before you started the show and said, what do you think we should do a show about? If I was part of the show creation, I probably would have just gone with some sort of tabletop role playing. I don't think I would have thought about world building, because this is going to be a funny thing to say. I don't really think of myself as a world builder. You do, and you do build a world, and I presume you have other worlds that you sometimes work on. I don't do that a whole heck of a lot. But Jeff thinks that my perspective is very valuable to come to the show as someone who consumes all this stuff. And also someone, I think I'm pretty critical. So,
but you're critical, and you have a creative streak yourself. So
right. It's not that I don't, I do write, I do create stuff. I do have worlds in my mind, but I don't spend as much time actually creating them as you do. So
few people do.
So my number one pick is actually episode 97, which, if you'll remember, this is actually a building episode. This was the episode that we built a boogeyman.
Actually, that's the home. Episode 97 is a creepy home for our boogeyman. Well, so I'm not sure what the episode number is, but it'll be in the show notes.
Well, then I'm going to reference both of them because
they were connected.
Well, not just because they were connected, but the things that we created with the boogeyman, and especially the things that we created with his home. There was so much creepy imagery. Like, we really dug deep into the things that kind of unsettled us as people and what would unsettle us as a viewer or reader. And, like, I still have a very vivid, like, images in my head of occurrences that might happen if you were to, you know, be misfortunate enough to cross paths with Ich Wagner, which was the name of the boogeyman. And like,
which just sounds creepy itself.
Yeah, the name is great. His home is terrifying. There is nothing good about it. Like, everything about it is absolutely horrible. And some of the things that Jeff came up with, I was like, oh, dude, really? Like, you want to go that far? I'm like, not even like, just pull it back a little. And you're like, no, it's going to be like this. It is the things of nightmares. It is absolutely. It reminds me of something you'd read in a Stephen King novel. It's so, just awful, but great. Like, that whole, and not just what we created, but the fact that we were creating together. And we have other episodes where we build stuff. Like, we had a great episode where we built a villain and one that we built a hero. And the villain one actually is now playing a bigger part in both the tabletop game, and I believe you said that character is actually going to make an appearance in one of the novels.
It would be, yeah. There's a potential for it in the novel itself, but I'm not sure where. But I think it's good. I like the character. I think I'll use her at some point. So
my point is that while we have a bunch of episodes like that, the Boogeyman ones really stick out for me. And it also, I'm sure, is, I have a great love for the villain.
Villains. Definitely, the villain is definitely. I forgot about that because I mixed the villain up with the hero because
they're both female characters.
They're both female characters, and they're both on the shady side. If you look at it from a distance,
that's true.
And I was thinking because we started using the hero in actually the heist stories.
Yes, but isn't the villain gonna?
The villain is actually in two of the novels I've written.
Well, no, isn't the villain going to make an appearance, or at least be referenced in that story?
She might. It depends on how it rolls out.
Okay,
but there's actually a plan to bring her out as well too. I just have to look up the name I gave her.
Can I throw a few honorable mentions out here? Because
I'm going to steal one from you first.
Go ahead, steal one from me.
And because this is actually one of my favorite moments in recording time.
I know where you're going.
Yes, and it is when. I revealed the name of I think it was episode 116.
116, yeah.
The simply succinct technology or tech level system.
Tech level methods, yeah.
Tech level methods. And Michael looked at me when I told him what the name was, like I was freaking insane. And then he realized that why I was saying that.
I looked at him and I'm like, really?
Are you
Simple
sure that's what
and succinct? Do you want to use both words in the title? And he's just looking at me like he's serious, and I'm like, is it what? And he was joking and just throwing me for a loop because he was so serious when he delivered it, and then we started laughing about it. I'm like, all right, I get it.
Giggling the way I am now after a few moments.
The fact, yeah. Not only Dawn's interview, but all of our interviews are worth listening to. I actually, it was funny because there's two interviews that I was around for, but wasn't able to be on. One, because we had the dates confused and I wasn't home to record with Jeff, and one because I was, it was when my back was all messed up and I was bedridden. So I wasn't able to do those, but each time we've done these, we've done like 2 or 3 interviews since where I've gotten to do them too, and they've been so much fun to meet, in some cases, members of our community, in other cases, just people that we've gotten to reach out to. So definitely the interview episodes. The maps episode was fun because Jeff is so passionate about maps, and we made a topic that some people might not be enthusiastic about fun. And I thought that was great.
And I do a lot of topics that people might not be enthusiastic about. So
it's true. But you know what? To your credit, I think that even if you have a topic that some people might be like, ugh, I still find it interesting to listen to your perspective on it, and I hope that everyone else does too. I assume that they do. Cat mummies. What was it? It was cat mummies. Rise of the Cat Mummies. Yeah.
Rise of the Cat Mummies.
Rise of the Cat Mummies, episode 101. If only for the title. But there was actually a lot of interesting information in that episode that I was unaware of that Jeff had dug up.
The only kind of humor you can get on this show, folks.
Yeah, bad. The Notebooks of Doom, episode 117. A lot of helpful information in that one. Number 161, Excalibur. That was when we talked about Excalibur. Lessons to be learned from Excalibur.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, that episode actually did really well. It blew my mind.
Yeah, we just talked about the movie and all the cool things about the King Arthur lore and the characters and everything. It was a lot of fun. I got 2 more mentions and then a third very important mention. So the Magic Rules series, which started at 181, great episode, a lot of great feedback on that one. It was actually a 3-parter. The number 192, which is actually the total eclipse of your fantasy sun, and this was when the eclipse was occurring in the United States. And I remember when we recorded this, and if you listen to the beginning of that episode, and you may notice that the intro to the episode, Jeff does one, and then I do the next one. We go back and forth. So it was my turn to do it, and we had multiple ideas to do the intro, including me. I was going to talk the lyrics to Total Eclipse of the Heart, and then I don't know if it was your idea or mine.
It was my idea.
It was your idea to sing it. So he asked me to sing it because I used to sing, like 20 years ago. But I was like, all right, I'll do it, and I sang it. But we also recorded a dramatic reading of the same sort of lyrics, not the whole thing. And I was like, I really liked the reading. I thought it came out good. I was embellishing my voice. And I thought to myself, like, whatever Jeff chooses, I accept it. But I said to myself, there's no way he's going to go with me singing. He's going to go with that other one because it sounded so good.
That would be so logical.
Right? And Jeff does the editing. So I don't hear the show until you guys hear the show. Because I'm a listener too. So when I downloaded that episode and I listened to it, as soon as it starts and I start singing, I'm like, I cringed. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe he went with this take. Why didn't he go with the talking take? Why didn't he go with me talking, not singing? But I was like, all right, I accept it. And the last one, and this one this one could really be interchangeable for Boogeyman's for my top pick, was the Dishonorable Mentions episode, which was when we talked about our favorite villains. And I thought that episode was a blast of an episode. Yeah. And that was episode 173. Do you have any other honorable mentions yourself? Anything specific that comes to mind?
I mean, for me, a lot of times it's the really esoteric stuff that I enjoy doing. And sometimes you're like, this just seems like kind of like a list of things that have happened and us talking about it. And I really love those episodes because for me, that's how I get my inspiration to world build. It's like I find a factoid that interests me and I go, okay, let me create a culture based off of a death mask and a calendar. And that's how I come up with sort of inspirations to build things. So for me, those kind of episodes are always the best because one, I'm always looking for that kind of stuff. If you can't tell, I'm full of a lot of useless information.
But you're putting it to good use.
Yeah, but I try and put it to good use to say, here are some things to think about in certain ways. So like anything about calendars, I'm obsessed with calendars and languages. And we're going to probably be doing more with languages this coming year. I want to do one like naming conventions, just like coming up with a decent naming conventions, ignoring all the phonics and a lot of the other stuff, but coming up with something to where you can have something that visually looks like a real language, even though it's really not. Rather than your classic, I add Berg to the end or to the front of a town instead of the end of a town. But it's sort of how do you get to something like that without?
Yeah, that's a good episode idea.
Yeah. So
our next bit is things that we loved outside of the show. You have written here outside the show production. I'm gonna go with outside of the show recording because
that's fine.
Because some of the things that I'm thinking are part of the production, they're just not on the show.
Yeah. I meant the actual recording of the show. And for me, really, the first one here was, and I used to be really good at doing this, and then I got really bad. I'd always have a question in every email I sent out, and like so, very early on, like probably back within the first 10 episodes, I got my first response because I was trying to get people to respond to me. Because it's like, yes, I want you to sign up for my email newsletter, but I want you to know that it's a two-way conversation. And it might take me a while to get to your response, but I try and respond whenever people respond to the emails, and because they actually come directly to my email box. And the first time I got someone to actually write an email to me.
That is how email works, though, Jeff.
It is, but remember, they're signing up for a newsletter. So it's like, a lot of times the newsletters are one-way information systems, and I don't mind if people, like I want to hear about your worlds. I want to know what's important to you in the realm of world building, and the show. And so the first time, and it was very early on, I got one. I sat there, I looked at Kristen, and I'm like, oh my gosh, someone actually wrote to me, and it was just really exciting.
For me, I think the first big moment, two. Definitely the Undercroft group, like just connecting with the community that listens to the show is huge. But within that, the story circle for me was gigantic because I just threw it out there. And for those of you that are unfamiliar, because we did this so long ago, I put up on the Facebook group, I'm like, hey, does anybody want to do a story circle? Which is simply this. I start a story, and then I pass it off to Jeff, and then Jeff writes a little bit more of the story, and then he passes it off to Bill, and then Bill writes a little bit of the story, and he passes it off to Jane, and so on and so forth. So that you have one story, and admittedly, it's always going to go a little off the rails because you might have an intention for characters or plot lines, and then as soon as you pass it off, you got to let that go because they're going to take it in a different direction. But
and Jeff will kill someone.
And it was still, but it was crazy fun, and it was really exciting to get it back because you'd like 4 or 5 writers would get a piece of it and add to it, and then it would come back to you and you'd be like, well, what's been happening in the story? It's like getting the next episode of a show you're watching. Like you don't know what it's going to be, but you're creating it too.
But you get some of that tension, yeah.
It was really interesting because I threw it out there not really expecting people to jump on it. Like I figured maybe a couple of people will, and it just took off. We actually wrote, I don't know what, like between 8 and 20,000 words. I don't remember what the count ended up being, but we wrote a lot, like a lot. I want to say it was in the neighborhood of 20,000 words.
Yeah. I have no idea. It was quite a bit. For me, and this was actually relatively recently. This is one of the flaws of sharing your stuff out there. And we did this episode a long time ago. We did an episode talking about taxes. And I don't even know what inspired it, but it's one of these esoteric things that like Michael likes to say I like to talk about, which is completely true. And someone noticed it, and they made some comment about my wife, who, for those of you who don't know, my wife is a certified public accountant who specializes in tax. She also she teaches tax for a living. We actually have a YouTube channel that helps out young accountants. So, and my wife's like, wait, you did a tax episode and you didn't let me help? And this might have actually even been before Michael. I mean, this was a while ago.
I think it was because I don't remember doing one on tax.
So I'll have to look up what the episode number was.
But not having your wife on seems to be like a big miss.
Yeah. No, Jeffrey sort of screwed the pooch on that one. Got in trouble.
Definitely sounds like a drop ball.
So it is the one flaw of sharing your stuff out there is especially when your wife comes back and goes, wait, you could have included me and you didn't? Okay, well, I have to make my own dinner tonight. But okay, what's your next one, Michael?
My next one, I'm doing these out of order, which I've written them, is just the talking that we do that doesn't get on the show. When I came home, even today, and this has happened countless times, where I've come home and I've had a rough day. To give you an idea of my disappointment in the day, there's three huge things that happened today that disappointed me. One, I had to drive more than an hour to a client's location to fix something. Not a big deal. I knew I had to do that today. What I didn't have to do was drive there a second time. So after doing it, I left, and my boss had told me at the beginning of the day, he's like, look, we don't really have anything else going on, so once you do that, if you just want to go home, that's fine with me. So I drove an hour, actually more than an hour, in the other direction, away from the client, and I was literally 15 minutes, 20 minutes from home, and I get a call from my boss saying, there's something wrong, you have to go back. So that was the first disappointment, that I had to go back. And that leads into the second disappointment, which is instead of spending my afternoon with that extra time watching the new Star Wars movie, I spent 2 more hours of my day driving. So that was my second disappointment. My third disappointment is at the government in the United States. And I won't get into the specifics of that. I'll just leave it at that. There was a vote today that I was not happy about. So... 3 things. But despite those 3 things and coming home in a semi-rotten mood, it's hard to get me in a rotten mood. I was in a semi-rotten mood. And I hadn't eaten anything since breakfast. Jeff and I start talking, and within like a minute or 2, I am laughing, he is laughing. So the stuff that goes on before the show starts recording, and sometimes we actually hit record. So some of this stuff is recorded, but it's not on the show. Just Jeff and I interacting where we're riling each other up or we're just helping each other's moods. And it really helps my sanity for just releasing some of that tension where I'm just stupid angry about stupid stuff. And then Jeff says something about, ant lizard overlords and, mutant bull weevils. And then I get laughing.
Yeah. Oh, no, really. I mean, to call it simply succinct.
Yeah, it's concise. It's simply concise, succinct methods. What? Yes, it's all 3 of those things. So yeah, for me, it's the talking that we do before the show, and sometimes after the show.
Yeah, one of my favorites is getting called out on typically it's in the Undercroft group. It has happened, I think, a few times on Twitter, but it definitely happens a lot more often in the Undercroft Facebook group, where it's like there's some joke that Michael and I are going back and forth on the show, like just the fact I call him Michael or Mike most of the time, and
Michael.
See, I screwed up. I went backwards that time.
Yeah, you did.
But just that kind of stuff. It just getting called out in the group for, for these little jokes that we have, when it works in a different direction, it's really funny. So I enjoy getting my chops busted, because I do my jokes half the time to set myself up to be made fun of. So I appreciate it when people follow through.
I mean, just the general interactions with the community have been amazing. There's so many great people that we have, started friendships with, and the interviews have led to some. I was on another podcast. I was on somebody else's podcast as a guest, and as a direct result of doing this show, and that was fantastic. I'm looking forward to a follow up, Derek. So Seize the GM podcast. Let's shout them out. Admittedly, I still haven't done my homework yet, though. I need to watch The Good, the Bad, and the Weird before we do that show again. But you guys have to watch your stuff too, and for Bunraku. So for you guys, you need to watch that. And there was, I forget what. There was one other thing we needed to watch because we were going to discuss all 3 things in one episode, but I don't remember what the third. I know whatever the third thing was, I've already seen it, so I'm not terribly concerned. But yeah. Oh, and going in with the interacting is also like doing the haikus. which started in a separate thread, and I think we started with like Lord of the Rings haikus, like some part of a thread became a Lord of the Rings haiku, and I was at work, and Charles was really the big instigator, him and Sean, I think, and we literally, I remember where I was working. It was a job that I had done like a year ago, and all day long we were passing back and forth Lord of the Rings haikus, and I was like, we have to do something with this. So then it became a weekly thing. It's kind of faded from popularity at this point. You know, we still do it, but it's not anywhere near as active as it was, so I think I need to create a new thing. But
yeah, because actually it also came out from the fact I told you that we need to stop doing so many story circles, because we have a lot of writers in their group, and a lot of them were spending all of their time doing story circles and not doing their projects.
Right.
So it's like that's quicker things.
And that's why the haiku came about, or also like we do what I call the quickie, which is kind of like not a micro story circle, but the intention of, and I've done this before, and I don't think I've ever explained it very well, but the intention of the quickie is that I put up, shush you, is that I put up like a 2 or 3 sentence beginning of a story, and it's usually vague. I keep it vague purposefully so that whoever writes something after it can go in whatever direction they want with it. So I put up 2 or 3 sentences that are usually a little vague, and it only includes 1 or 2 characters. And the intention of the quickie is for you, the writer, to take those 3 sentences and then write only 3 sentences coming off of those 3 sentences. And that's where it ends. And for a while, people were getting that, and they would take those 3 and then write their thing. And that was what it's supposed to be. But then people were turning it into story circles. They were taking the 3, and then they were writing their 3, and then the next person to respond would take that and continue it. And the reason I don't like that, and the reason I was trying to get people to get the idea, is the intention of that exercise is to explore your creativity with a different start point. Almost like when you do a what's the word I'm looking for, where you have a story starter?
Story prompt.
Story prompt. It's almost it's a story prompt, really. But what I'm trying to do is get you to take this thing, my 3 sentences, and go in what is a direction that is specific to you and specific to your creativity. So if you then take if you take those 3 and then you write your 3, and then somebody else comes along and they take those 6 and then write their 7 through 9, that second person is building off of your creativity, not what I always write as a very kind of bare bones, kind of blank idea. Because I want them to create I want all of you to be individuals. I want you to explore your individual creativity and really build off of what comes natural to you. So that's the intention of the quickie.
Well, I think the interesting thing with that kind of a process too is it shows people like the completely random directions you can go off with the same stimulus. Yeah,
and that's the other big point of it, because if the thread goes where you have 10 entries and all 10 entries go in 10 different wildly different directions, that's what I want all of you to realize. I want all of you to see that. Whereas if it just becomes a story circle, it's one line. It's one line of direction. It might be a meandering, twisting, turning line, but I want to see 10 different lines. I want to see each of your 10 different individual ideas come out. So that, and I've tried not to be discouraging in the threads about it, because I don't want to tell people they're writing wrong, you know, but that it's just that's what sometimes occurs with the quickies is not the intention of the exercise. So I just felt obligated right now while we're talking about it to explain that.
Well, that too. And Jeffrey has a philosophical hatred for haikus. And I'm sure people who are around when the first ones would come around, I would kind of interact, but I would never do it right. To the point where I came up with my essential haiku, which is just the word pie, P-I. Yeah, but it's still fun with the interactions with people with them. So I just hate to be told how many syllables to write where. Yeah, whatever. That's just Jeffrey being Jeffrey. Yeah.
I've got one more. What have you got?
Go ahead and finish your one more up, and then we'll go to where we're going.
My one more is simply when we remade the intro and the outro, which was actually kind of fun to sit and do, even though it was kind of funny, because
That's the first time in a while we recorded together too.
Yeah, actually, that's true. We hadn't recorded in the same room in a long time. Usually, for when we first started doing the show, we would record at Jeff's house. So I would drive more than an hour to go to Jeff's house on whatever day we were recording. For a while there, it was on Saturdays, but then it became, I think we did it on like Thursday.
Well, it was at first it was a Thursday, and then we moved to a Saturday because traffic.
Yeah, traffic.
Because
it's horrible driving through.
There's a city between us with a highway interchange, which is.
It's horrible.
It's just never good. Yeah.
I had to do that drive a couple days ago, and it took me so long to get home. Like, it was insane. Like, I'm so glad. I used to have to drive through that every single day. I don't know how I did it without losing my sanity, because I just don't have the patience for it now. I hate it. But we have since changed to, we now record remotely. So Jeff records at his house and I'm at my house. But for the intro and outro, it was important for, we both agreed that we should get together. I mean, if only for the energy, because it's definitely a funnier energy when we're together. And it was funny because when I was doing my reading, I for some reason, I could not say my own name in a way that sounded good to me. Every time I said it, I'm like, I sound like an idiot. Like, I want to do this powerful intro when I say Jeff Ingram. But when I said my name, I'm just like, ugh. My God,
Mikey Miller.
Yeah, it was like, and I'm Mike Miller. It was, I'm Michael Miller. It just, it never came out right. And like, even after we completed, I was like, just use whichever take. I don't know.
Well, it's just, and you're right though. And I think it's the middle initial, but Jeffrey W. Ingram just sounded great, and you could do it great too. You just couldn't do your own name good. So
I know. I don't know why. I've said my name many times.
All right. So now I'd like to wrap up the show with a little bit of sort of where we're going. A lot of the episodes are going to seem the same. Don't get me wrong. We're going to try and come up with actual, like, some forms and some other tools just to help world builders out, which we'll give away for free on the thing, because one of my missions in life is I want to help create 1 million new worlds. And to do that, sometimes people actually want things in a checklist form or in a form to do things in, so that they can make sure that they feel like they've gotten it all done. So there's going to be more of that kind of stuff coming out over the year. If I could stage it correctly, maybe one new one a month. I'm not really sure.
Spreadsheets, charts, maps, organization.
Yes. Stuff to help you get organized to get through your world building so you can get to the storytelling. Which, remember, even if you just world build for world building's sake, I say you should still story tell, because stories help make the details of your world more memorable to you.
And it may sound weird, but I view my role in the creation of this show, like, I feel like I love to be able to bring a perspective. I love to be able to create show topics. I love to be able to, chat with Jeff about pop culture and just have fun with it. But I feel that my most important role is to encourage you guys. I feel like me being a cheerleader and just being encouraging and letting you guys know that you're creative enough, your perspective is valued and valuable and worth sharing, and letting you know that even if you have an idea or a world that is very similar to one that already exists, that world, the one that already exists, doesn't have your take on it, doesn't have your spin and your perspective. So you don't stop doubting yourself. Just do it, write it, share it, show it, create it. Just put it together.
Yeah,
it's good stuff. Like,
it's
let's
good stuff.
Be a part of the million. Be a part of the new million worlds.
And along the lines of what Michael's saying there too, and largely because of my background and being able to create things technologically, is I want to make it easy for people to share their stuff. And one of the big places that people get stuck, where they allow their fear to sort of overrule them, is, well, there's so much you have to do. It's complicated. They don't know how to get the website set up, in a way that works, where they don't have to put a lot of work into it. They don't want to learn how to code. So I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff trying to help people. Get on my newsletter if you're not right now, but at the end of this month, we'll get a lot more specific into it at the beginning of February. We'll start talking about literally, getting you guys to be able to have good websites that will allow you to minimize your time doing that, but giving you the ability to share out the type of content you want to. And to make it scalable, so if you start making money, you can actually pay people to do it for you at that point. But structurally, it will be sound enough that it can last you for millions of dollars. Hopefully.
The funny thing is we were coming to the end of the year last year, and we were teasing the things that were coming in 2017, and here we are about to walk into 2018. And I feel like we got a lot of cool things coming down the road for 2018 as well. So it's got me excited about new episodes, new topics, new projects, new things that Jeff has got going on. And actually, it's got me thinking about things that I have been procrastinating on that I need to assemble for you guys. So
yes.
So more things coming for 2018.
And we have to talk about that, but yes, we have to get back onto that.
Yeah, we do. It's been a year, I realize, and I have done like very little work on that project. So.
And I want to help make your life so much easier when we talk about this, but that's for a different time. So now the world building task of the day. Did I actually create one here?
You did. Yes. So come to the Facebook group. Join the Facebook group. And that's not the task, but you'll have to join the Facebook group to do the task, which is let us know your favorite moments of the past 200 and some odd episodes. Tell us, and if you're like, oh yeah, it's just anything from episode 79 and before, like anything before episode 79.
Just ignores what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Except for Don's episode. He would never say that.
Well, no. I'm saying just their favorites are everything before episode 79.
You're going the opposite way with that.
I'm going the opposite way. But remember, self-deprecation.
Yeah.
So yeah, come to the group, and if you're already part of the group, thanks. And admittedly, actually, we haven't done shout-outs in a few episodes, so I think next episode I'm gonna have to pull out and shout out. If you do join the group, I will shout you out on the show. So yeah, for those of you who are part of the group, thank you, and tell us your favorite episode, favorite moment, favorite thing about us. And you.
Yes. Or it doesn't even have to be, it could be like because of timing, like in what's happening in your life, and then you're hearing something that works. So just let us know.
Yeah.
And now for the real world task, there's no real world task.
There is so.
Well, not for them. This is for us to say to you guys. We actually just we could not do this without you guys. If we had download numbers of 0 every week, we would flip out and start crying. But you guys,
you would.
I wouldn't tell you. Yeah, but we do appreciate so much. I mean, most of you will never say a word to us, and we understand that. But we want to thank you so much for, all of the downloads we've gotten. We've exceeded, in the first couple of years more than I figured the show would ever get. So I want to thank you also very, very much. And I guess your task is to have a happy new year.
Yeah, and thank you guys so much. I mean, really, because I also love to be able to say that, yeah, I have a podcast, and it's downloaded all over the world. We're in how many countries?
84 last I saw. But we're still
4 different countries.
If someone knows someone in Mongolia, please get them to download an episode. I feel we're not
missing
completed
a demographic, yeah.
until we've hit Venezuela. And the other one that shocked me was I love the country of Belize. I want to bring faster internet to Belize, and I understand why we probably don't have downloads of Belize after reading about the internet down there. But if someone could get me a download in Belize too, those 2 countries would just be the icing on the cake for 2018. So
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, and thank you so much once again. Thank you so much for listening to the Worldbuilders Anvil.
We would love it if you would share the Worldbuilders Anvil with 2 of your friends.
And so would they.
If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting.
Take them to Stitcher or iTunes, or best of all, just send them to our website, www.gardul.com.
That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.